Yeah, they've always kind of started with those three ever since Phantasy Star Online. Prior to that, it was more your character kind of had its own abilities rather than a set class necessarily. Although abilities sometimes did carry over between the characters. PSO was really where you had Hunter, Force, and Ranger to start with, and then the race and male female type kind of redistributed some of the stats and attack speeds and things like that from there. But Phantasy Star Universe, you had the same combination: Hunter, Force, Ranger. It really wasn't until Phantasy Star Portable 2, I think, that you had the Vanguard in there, which became the first time that there was ever a fourth starting class, as it were. Even with PSO2, in its initial launch on the Japanese side, it was just Hunter, Ranger, and Force.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of months later, they then added in Fighter, Tector, and Gunner.
Do you think we're going to see a similar kind of rollout in that regards, where when this launches, it's launching with the three, I guess, iconic classes?
I think so. I think it's really going to depend upon how they decide to handle classes again this time. Like, is it just going to be you can start Hunter, Ranger, Force and take that all the way to max level, and that could just be your main class throughout the whole thing? Or are they potentially going to go something with the Phantasy Star Universe, whereby Hunter, Force, and Ranger were just sort of your introductory classes, and then it went up from there into like 40 Fighter and Tector and others like that?
Yeah, I wonder. What do you think, Sal? What do you think, Zora?
I think they're gonna end up just, starting off with the three and then slowly introducing the other ones, would be my guess. But what I think would be really cool is if they have your three base classes, a Hunter, Ranger, and Force, but then as you grow in level, you unlock different skill trees where you can so for Hunter, for instance, you use, your big sword and everything like that, but then you can branch off and kind of make a more fighter build, or you can kind of cross it somewhere in the skill tree to where it's okay, well, I want it to be more fighter, but I can go ahead and now also put in, an extra Techer move or something like that, or a technique somewhere that this class wouldn't normally get.
So that brings me to, I guess, a real hot topic, because obviously the PSO2, the base one, has the subclass system, but when we talk about the fact that this game is free, the current monetization with the skill trees, the character trees in Phantasy Star 2 current is financially locked. You buy additional trees. Occasionally there's a reset that comes about. And personally speaking, I've got my own thoughts. I want to share them. I want to let you guys say, is this a good time for Sega to kind of look at that system and decide if that's something that should carry forward? What do you think, Prince?
I think it's time for that system to evolve, actually. I would say if they're going to really live up to kind of what that initial trailer showed, where the character was running through the forest being chased by that monster, he put away his sword and he grabbed his gun. I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to make it so that you can kind of, if you can't switch classes on the fly, then you need to at least be able to rearrange your class out of combat, and they need to make that free. So that it's not going to cost players to actually change anything if they need to adapt to a situation and they just don't have the right skill tree set up. That being, if they even have skill trees in this game.
What do you think, Zora?
Yeah, I could agree with that, but like I said, if they go with something where it's okay, my main's a Hunter, but I can branch off into different aspects of the other classes instead of like a subclass like we have now, Hunter main, but I can throw in different parts. I can use, the slide shot from the Ranger if I absolutely need to. I could switch my weapon to a Ranger weapon instead of a Hunter weapon, and then just use like some specific photon arts or something like that. Like, you don't have a whole range like you would if you were that main class, but you have X, Y, and Z ones that you can use on the fly,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because we, at least in current Phantasy Star Online 2, you can change your class at any time. And they could go any different direction that they want. I think personally speaking, the biggest, I guess, complaint that I have with the current iteration of Phantasy Star Online 2 is the skill tree system and how that it's monetized, because I think it discourages creativity. Essentially, if you are either going to look up a guide and you're going to follow that because that is pretty much what the meta has determined, and that is the free way. And if you mess up, you're going to wait for a reset, or you're going to go play a different class, or you're going to leave the game. And I wonder how those stats show. I wonder if they have data on that and just, saying, hey, like this was a good thing or this was not. I think it's fine to monetize certain aspects of it. Like if, let's say you want to have multiple skill trees to kind of swap between the two, like you guys said, for different like encounters and environments. Like, oh, like I know I'm about to go up against a whole pack of, ice, resistant mobs. Let's make sure that I'm packing foy as a part of like any kind of traits and things like that. You can say, hey, here's your trees. And if you want more trees to kind of build out different builds, you have that ability, but kind of allowing you to easily, with some kind of cooldown, because essentially there's no reason to swap if you are always going into your menu and then switching it out. And that would break the gameplay. That would slow down the game itself. And I don't think your party would appreciate if every encounter you're like, okay, let me think about this. Oh, I'm going to change this. Now, obviously, I think for the most part, most players are just going to go like, let me go bash my head against this mob, see what happens, and have some fun. And that's that case. But I think this would be a really good opportunity to say, listen, we want you to play around with experimentation. We want you to play around with these, assuming they had skill trees at all. But hopefully when it comes down to the builds, what they've already shown us with these three classes, it'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of tie back into the original PSO, in which it's always interesting when people talk about it. My dyslexic brain struggles so much with how we've named the original PSO classes based off of your race and your class. But today, I don't think the race obviously has as much or any more impact than it really should in the long run. Just kind of play what race you want and go from there. Let's go ahead and So let's go ahead and explore some more of what we saw this weekend. Prince, was there anything that we have yet to talk about that you are really interested or you wanna bring up now?
There's one other thing, and it has to actually do. Initially, we didn't think there were many that there were any items dropping there, but there actually were items dropping. And if you look carefully at them, what they're named, you're actually going to see like an R at the end of some of those names, which means that there are going to be certain weapons that you can equip in a right hand and certain weapons you can equip in a left hand.
Oh, that's great. I'd love to see that brought back. Now, Zoila says bring back traps for cast, and then also that PSO is as best when the classes are more specialized. I could not agree more, but go ahead, continue, Prince.
That was kind of the one other big thing that had been found in all this. I mean, we got the image of course, the fact that there are non-dull enemies in this game as well, which was actually really nice to see. I put together a little bingo card for myself on what my predictions were going to be, and that was one of the spaces I got.
Nice. Yeah, the name of the dolls is the fact that they're called dolls. I don't know. Personally, is just weird, and that's I'll get over it. But it's like I just as a parent, like I'm thinking, like why do they call them that? Like, okay, is there a lore reason that I'm not aware of for the name?
Officially revealed at this point here, but it's potentially they could potentially be Dark Falls controlled. We'll have to see. There are implications from the end of episode 6, how all that played out, that might lead to that being the conclusion, but we really don't have enough to conclusively say anything at this time.
Okay, that sounds fine. Soro, so what's your read on the game so far? I've got some additional thoughts I want to share, but I want to make sure that you get some ample time to kind of like anything stand out to you that was particularly exciting, concerning. Obviously we want more information, but go ahead.
Yeah, just the way that the gameplay looks, it definitely is reminiscent of current PSO2, but it just looks a lot smoother. Really excited about that. Really excited about the new dash and glide mechanic, because that just looks awesome. being able to just glide over rivers and everything like that. Where currently, you try to cross a river and you get stopped.
The fluidity of travel and the level design, it really draws your attention right away. That's one of the things I think with New Genesis has a really good opportunity of reintroducing a lot of people to the series. But I don't know if you get, Prince, you get this on your videos and your content, guys. Again, be sure to follow Prince Brightstar. That it's a lot of people like, oh, PSO2, that looks so old. It's like, okay, well now, like, what's your excuse? What's your excuse for not logging in and playing this version? Now, Zeomaniac says skill trees are the illusion of choice. Prince Brightstar, what are your thoughts there? He also says falls dolls, which is so genius. Anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that to some degree, although there are certain builds that you can put together that can help you get over a certain situation. Like for within the Phaleg fight, I know that there are some people that went with a 10 out of 10 Iron Will. That'll also be the case with the episode 5 and True Boss, as it were, once they get up to level 999 with that guy. But it's outside of those situations, I mean, here's the thing. PSO2 and PSO in general has never really had like your traditional DPS checks outside, or rather compared to like your hardcore rating scene that you have in other games. So as long as you're doing damage, you're generally okay. Granted, there are certain pieces of content where you do actually need to bring the deeps, as it were. In order to get through things, but those are few and far between in PSO. My real question is, how is that going to play out in New Genesis? Is Sega actually going to try to push something like that going forward now here? And